Presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest. It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, howdy, everybody. Welcome aboard another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, March 13th. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you indefinitely. How about that one? Of course, we're powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to andymoorehonda.com to get more to your door and the best in new and used vehicles. And FreeThink for the best in merchandising, apparel. Reach out to FreeThink and they will get you taken care of at freethink.com. How's everybody doing? Looking forward to Dylan Sinn joining us from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette today. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Stars will get you ready for this weekend's Indiana High School boys basketball tournament action, as that is getting close. It's at the semi-state level. I'm looking forward to going to Newcastle, one of the iconic venues, most iconic venues in all of high school basketball in the world, I guess, for that matter. And the captain, Rick Bozich from WDRB.com, will be joining us as well, as we'll talk about the upcoming Big Ten tournament that starts today. 2 games going on, one of which will determine Indiana's opponent in their upcoming game tomorrow night, which will either be Michigan or Penn State. Of course, we expect that to be Penn State, but we shall see. You never can tell, right? It's tournament time. Hello to everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. You guys are on there. Great. Appreciate you so much. Fred, Michael, Robert, Ryan, how are you, sir? Miss Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Realty, especially those of you in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area. You need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Bob on from Georgetown. St. Mary's 69, Gonzaga 60 from Fred. Yeah, I haven't pulled that up yet, but not much coming out of that division. And that may have, did that take care of Gonzaga? Did that knock them out? They have been kind of riding on that bubble. We'll talk about that. Stephen on. Let's see. He said he left me a message yesterday concerning my take on Mike, and I never got it. So just ask me what the question is, and I'll tell you right now. I'm not afraid to say that. Brian says, hi about them Pacers. Took down the team with the best record at home and did it with defense. How about them apples? We'll look at that. I think Steven's talking about Woodson's job. If you're talking about whether he's safe or not, he's not going anywhere. I have said that more times on this show than I can count. That he's not going anywhere, that nothing is going to happen. There will be no change. I've said it over and over and over. I don't know how many times I can say that. Ryan says he didn't realize Caleb Love was player of the year. Can y'all imagine what we might have looked like with him? He was closing, not sure what I can't read that completely. Jason, how are you doing? Rudy the Boxer says Adidas needs to provide Indiana with some AE ones for the Big Ten tournament. Is that a new shoe? David, how are you doing, sir? Back on from Dagonia Springs. And Dr. Drew, U of L have any players they can pick up in the portal? That's, you know what? Not a bad question.
There's actually, I know you mentioned U of L. I'm fairly familiar with what they got, and they don't have the best talent, obviously, but there's one guy that I feel like Indiana, would fit that caliber of a player that you're looking for. It would be Brandon Huntley Hatfield. And unfortunately, that's not a guard. That is it's a power forward center style of player. But
we're still going to need that to replace Khalil Ware when he hits the draft.
True. I think under the right system, he could thrive. I mean, he did well with Louisville. Obviously, he just didn't, have the right pieces around him and even the right coach around him, so to speak. But he also already did transfer in from Tennessee. So I don't know if he's somebody who could transfer again without a waiver. But again, I know that it seems like that rule is almost ignored by the NCAA nowadays. So I'm not even sure if that would be a problem. But if there's anybody that Indiana fans would look at with Louisville's roster, I would say Brandon Huntley Hatfield. That's a name to keep an eye on.
Well, more importantly, it's these players. Will they look at Indiana?
Yeah.
Indiana can look at them all they want. Will they give Indiana a look? That's up to them. It's going to be interesting to see what Indiana can get done in the transfer portal, because it is going to be the life of the program coming up. The recruiting is not there. They do not have the pieces in place, and bringing in 4 freshmen wouldn't do you any good anyway.
Oh, here I realized somebody else that was actually formerly recruited by Mike Woods and that's on the Louisville roster. Caleb Glenn went to Male High School before going to La Lu to finish his career. But yeah, that's somebody else that Mike Woodson would likely take a look at, considering he recruited him.
Yeah, he has it on there. That's right. I remember talking about him back in the day. So there you go. Best basketball shoes out. Oh, Anthony Edwards. They're the best basketball shoes out. Well, then they should get me a pair of them. Adidas AEs. You can see I'm not up on the latest shoe trend. I do know that they wear a lot of different ones, man. There's a lot of different styles out there that those guys wear. But mostly all of them are slips. And that is a cool feature, I have to say. Let's see. I'm just trying to get through the Big Ten. Andrew says the Big Ten has gotten at least 8 teams in the tournament every year since 2017. Well, let me tell you, that streak is going to come to a resounding halt this year. There is no way the Big Ten gets in 8 teams this season, in my opinion. As a matter of fact, 6 is going to be a stretch for the Big Ten this year. They just don't have the Michigan State is going to struggle to get in. I think they have to win a game in the Big Ten tournament. If they lose another game, they'll probably get dropped down to a play-in game, but they're down near the bottom right now. They have one of the last buys, as I looked yesterday. So that means they have very little margin, and I wonder if who they lose to would really matter. If they lost to whoever they play would be an underdog and they would be a favorite in the game. I don't think it would be enough because their stinking metrics are so crazy positive for Sparty. But even they're at 18-13 now. Even if they go to 18-14 with a loss in the Big Ten tournament, their metrics, I don't think it's like Indiana. Indiana could get to the Big Ten championship game, and I don't think that their metrics would allow them to get in. It's mind-boggling. It's beyond my pay grade. I can't figure all those formulas out, but it really makes you wonder about those. I'm not saying Indiana was a great team. Obviously, they're not, but they fought through the end of the season. They've won 4 straight Big Ten games. They're pretty similar to Michigan State. You've got to win over them, but yet you're not even, and I keep saying the same universe. I shouldn't say that. You're not in the same solar system. How about that? I love watching stuff about the universe, which is mind-boggling. But, yeah, they're not in the same solar system as Michigan State as far as metrics go. And the only thing that Indiana can do about that is to win the Big Ten tournament. Do I think that they're capable of that? Even as well as they're playing right now? Unfortunately, I don't, because there's a lot of talk about Trey Galloway and his issue. A lot of rumors on the fan social media sites yesterday. I'm not really going to talk about a rumor. I'm not saying the stuff is not true, but I can't talk about something that I don't know is true. But I will say, if they don't have Trey Galloway, it's just going to be too much to overcome, because you can get by without. He was able to take up a bit of the load for Xavier Johnson, but Xavier Johnson still needs Trey Galloway, I think. Now you're going to have Xavier Johnson and Gabe Cupps. Well, that doesn't really do anything, because Xavier will do what little Gabe was doing, and that's going to leave nothing for Gabe to accomplish. And it just takes a someone off of the board that can contribute via scoring, via assists. And Trey Galloway was doing a tremendous job in both of those late. Derek said, yes, I agree, Derek. If this IU team had been playing the way they are right now 4 weeks ago, we would not be having this conversation right now. They would be in. I agree with that. We're talking 2 wins. You just look at games, are the home game against Nebraska, the home game against Penn State. You could stop right there. Bam.
I think you'd still need to have beaten Rutgers on the road, considering how bad Rutgers ended up being. I know they're not horrible like Michigan is.
That's a tough ask. I mean,
yeah. Or even the Northwestern win at home. I mean, I know that wasn't a bad loss per se, but that would have been a better win to have.
But they would be at 20 wins right now going into the Big Ten tournament. And then if you win 1, you're at 21 wins. You would actually be so, and you have to take off the losses. You'd be down at like 21-10. So
that's true. I do think if you only had 2 additional wins, you'd still need to win a game or 2 in the conference tournament to make sure you were in. But either way, it's not even really worth discussing.
But they could
likely because
they could get in without having to win it. I do agree with that. So, but that can always be just talked about. I mean, there's always going to be discussion that could they, would they, should they, this, that, and the other thing. But there's that. Mike Davis was let go a few days ago by Detroit Mercy. Of course, they went like 1-27, so that was not a big surprise. Hate to hear that for Mike. He's been a good friend to us on the show, coming on frequently. His son, Antoine, almost broke the scoring record.
I will say it does go to show how impactful he was last season. To go from, I know they weren't the best team in their league, but
you ain't lying.
They went from being on, they nearly won their conference tournament last year to one measly win for the season.
Yep. You ain't lying, brother. He ain't lying, but big show today. Looking forward to it. Dylan Sinn joining us next from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Back with that and much more, brought to you by Freethink and Andy Moore Honda. Back right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for a
Good morning, Dylan Sinn.
Morning, John. How are you?
I'm good. Is there a delay with us? You kind of responded a little late to me saying good morning. I just want to make sure, see if there's any.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, maybe we're fine. I just wanted to check in and see if that was the case.
Sure.
How about them Fighting Irish winning a game in the ACC tournament, huh? Do you cover Notre Dame?
Yeah, exactly. They not particularly, no. If they're good, I would, but they haven't been since I've been here. So,
got you.
Yeah. Marcus Burton won Freshman of the Year
for the ACC.
Yeah, he was Mr. Basketball in Indiana last year.
Yeah, you just hit Jim's hot button. Anytime somebody wasn't recruited by Woodson, does well for a different program. That was a former in-state guy.
Yeah, I mean he's up by he lives like 10 minutes from South Bend. He's from Mishawaka. He was committed to Mike Bray way before Shrewsbury got the job.
Do you think Mike Bray is done, or do you think he'll get back into coaching at all?
Well, he's coaching with he's like a assistant with the Hawks, I think.
I guess I should have been more specific. I should have said, do you think he'll be a head coach again?
I doubt it.
Oh, I doubt it. It's too much trouble. He's made his money. Man, if those guys have the money that they need, then you just go into TV or something.
Yeah, he's an assistant coach with the Hawks right now, I think. Or just some kind of analyst or something like that. Like he's just kind of hanging out and just trying to teach basketball, I think.
Oh, don't worry, Herbo. We'll talk about that. That's right up Rick's alley.
Oops.
Has the Big Ten awards been announced?
Yeah, yesterday.
Oh, there we go. I think I have it up.
Yeah, IU and Purdue basically swept the big ones.
All right, here we go, guys.
To make a gourmet meal at home, or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here with you on this Wednesday, March 13th. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it greatly. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette joins us now. Lots coming up with the Big Ten tournament, or everybody's tournament is about to get underway. Most will start today because needing the time. Dylan, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you always as joining us each Wednesday. Yesterday, the announcement comes out for Indiana or for the Big Ten awards, and Indiana was certainly not swept, nor was Purdue.
No, they basically won. Between them, they basically won every one of the major awards. Edey was obviously Player of the Year again. Matt Painter was Coach of the Year. He shared that award with Fred Hoiberg of Nebraska. Obviously, I think either one of them would have been a pretty good pick. And then Mason Gillis was Sixth Man of the Year for Purdue. He's basically kind of a sixth starter for them. He comes off the bench to start of the game, but he's often on the court at the end of games for his free throws and 3-point shooting. And then Freshman of the Year, Mackenzie Mbako was named co-freshman of the year. He and Iowa's Owen Freeman shared that honor. So back-to-back freshman of the year for IU now after Jalen Hood-Schifino last year.
Who all made the first team?
First team, I think there was 6 of them. It was off the top of my head, it was Edey, Boo Buie, Terrence Shannon, who else? Marcus Damask, I believe, Braden Smith, and one other person that I cannot remember off the top of my head. Might have been Jameer Young from Maryland.
Tyson Walker?
No, Tyson Walker was second team.
Really?
Yeah.
So he got it over. Wow, that's a little surprising.
Yeah,
but,
Tyson Walker's a better player than Jameer Young. I voted Tyson Walker. I'm one of the panelists, but it was Jameer Young, I guess, is averages more points or something like that. I don't know.
very similar. The rivals first teams were announced as well that we've all voted in, and first team Zach Edey, Boo Buie, Jameer Young, Terrence Shannon Jr., Tyson Walker, and Braden Smith. There were 6 there. Apparently Braden Smith tied Tyson Walker, which that's a little surprising. Not it's just Tyson Walker being that low to me. I kind of Jameer Young was a little higher than I think he should have been, but either way, it's the same 6 that you just said. Second team was Dawson Garcia, Marcus Damask, Khalil Ware for Indiana, AJ Storr of Wisconsin, and Peyton Sanford. And then the third team was Malik Renew, Bruce Thornton of Ohio State, Julian Reese from Maryland, Kisai Tominaga from Nebraska, and Coleman Hawkins, Illinois. There's some. Hawkins is a player, man. That's a guy that's probably going to be in the NBA.
Yeah. Gosh. He has a great skill set. Don't get me wrong. He plays with a lot of emotion, though, and sometimes I think it affects Illinois negatively. I've seen it. Now, he helped Illinois beat IU with it this year because he drew that technical foul on Xavier Johnson at the end of the first half that was not a technical foul. But he gets really emotional. And I think it sometimes affects Illinois where it kind of spreads to the rest of the team and gets them off of their rhythm. And so he's a great player. Don't get me wrong. He stretches the defense. He's really strong. He's a good rebounder, good instincts on defense. But I do think he needs to kind of that's his next level of development is knowing when to turn that emotion on and off. Because right now it doesn't seem like he has that kind of switch yet.
Brooks Barnhizer, honorable mention.
There you go, Brooks Barnhizer.
Did not get he did not land on a roster from any team in Indiana. They let him get away out of the state. But that's the Big Ten is not deep team-wise this year. Yeah. But when you look at the individual players that are in that, like the guys that are getting honorable mention, I'm like, wow, really?
Yeah.
And I mean that because they're good players. Jamison Battle. AJ Hoggard. These guys are just honorable mention. They didn't even get first, second, or third team.
Yeah, there's plenty of talent. Like that's why it's kind of like there's so much talent in this league. There were so many teams this year that it was like Michigan State should have been way better than they were. I don't know why Michigan State was not better than it was. Iowa has several good players, and they never really gelled together. Minnesota has Dawson Garcia, obviously. And they have the guy whose name is escaping me right now, who leads the league in assists, and he was barely even honorable mention. Elijah Hawkins is his name, and like they are mediocre. Like I don't. There were teams that just didn't gel together in the league this year, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah, in the rivals deal, Fred Hoiberg got Coach of the Year. Owen Freeman, Freshman of the Year.
There you go.
By himself. So, and Cliff Amore was the Defensive Player of the Year from Rutgers. That makes sense. That player coming, and Mason Gillis is Sixth Man of the Year as well. So a lot of similarities there. Rutgers playing today. They take on, or they see. Are they playing Penn State?
They're the 12 seeds. They're playing. Penn State's playing Michigan, and the winner of that
Rutgers
game.
And Maryland. Rutgers, Maryland.
Yeah.
They play today at 5:30. So wherever you're listening to this program on radio, like ESPN 97.7, the Ref ESPN, or on 12:30 a.m. 104.7 FM WJLB, the voice of the region, up in Hammond, or on Fort Wayne's sports station, only sports station, 1380 The Fan. Will those games
That's
will
right.
be on after us. So you can start watching Big Ten and see who the play is going to be. Rutgers and Maryland. I picked Rutgers in that game just because of defense, and Maryland's away from home, and Rutgers
I think Maryland
plays well enough.
Yeah, Maryland has just kind of fallen apart here late in the season. They are in really bad shape. I think Rutgers is playing better than they were earlier in the season, but Maryland is playing worse. Rutgers got one of their better players back from suspension NCAA eligibility issue. They got him in February, so they've been playing better since then. And they're always a tough out. They're because they play such good defense. So the winner of that game will move on to face Wisconsin tomorrow.
Yes, but then the other game today, Michigan and Penn State, the winner of that game will be Indiana's opponent tomorrow. That obviously expected to be Penn State, a team that swept Indiana. But you know what they say, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. I don't know who came up with that. But there you go. Indiana's playing well. Penn State, this may not be the right time to catch Indiana. They've won 4 straight. They've had Xavier Johnson back, but now they've lost Trey Galloway. Apparently, we don't know what his availability will be. But if they have lost Trey Galloway, that's a major hit.
Yeah.
Before you joined us, I said that he was able to pick up and fill in for Xavier and all of that now, but they have Xavier back, which is great and helpful for Indiana. But losing Trey Galloway and replacing him with Gabe Cupps, now you're in trouble because you've got Xavier and Gabe Cupps who essentially were playing the same position, and Gabe Cupps does not bring anything offensively to the team. And if you've got them both on the floor at the same time, Gabe is going to have to be playing some tremendous defense, but we've seen Anthony Leal come in and do that instead. So it's going to be a tough road to hoe for Indiana if they don't have Trey Galloway.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, I think Galloway said, after the game on Sunday that he would be able to play in the Big Ten tournament. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll be able to play in this first game. So hopefully you will have him available. But I think the thing is that, Trey Galloway did a great job of filling in for Xavier Johnson. And I think it actually helped Xavier Johnson when he came back, because Galloway being Indiana's main ball handler kind of gave X a chance to play off the ball a little bit more. It took a lot of pressure off of him, and it allowed him to do more of what he's good at, which is get downhill, attack the rim, and then drive and kick, right? He is not a great X is not a great run the offense guy. He just isn't. He's not that type of point guard. He's a guy who wants to get downhill, he wants to create, but he wants to do it in a very particular way. I think Galloway being there allowed him to do it in the particular way that makes him best. And I think when you have him as the lead ball handler, there's more pressure on him. And that's when you start to get the bad X turnover type situations, right? He makes bad decisions. He throws passes where he shouldn't. Absolutely. Yeah. And it causes issues for the offense because he brings a lot to the table. It's just a question of when you try to make him the number one distributor, is that where he's best? I think the answer is no. And the problem for if Galloway is out for IU in this game, assuming they play Penn State, that's a problem because Penn State lives off of forcing turnovers. That's what they do. They force a ton of turnovers. Their lead guard, Ace Baldwin, was Defensive Player of the Year for the AP. He leads the league in steals by a wide margin. He just has really, really good hands and instincts. And that's a bad matchup for Indiana. If X is your lead guard and he has to deal with Ace Baldwin, he's probably going to turn the ball over 4 or 5 times. And it's just kind of a reality of what's going to happen. So if Galloway is out, you're going to need X to play his best game of the year for Indiana to win that game. And it's a tall task.
And you're probably going to see a lot more of Anthony Leal for his defensive play. And I will tell you, he played great defense in the last game. He was just he was working his butt off to stay with his guy, and did a good job on that. And they're going to have that in a game against Penn State, because Penn State absolutely lit them up from the perimeter both times they played.
Both times, yeah, and did it last year too. Like that's remember the worst game that IU played all of last season was at Penn State. They gave up, I think, 15 3-pointers. It was one of the first games after X had gotten hurt, and they were still trying to figure out some new rotations. And Penn State just moved the ball all around on them and rained threes. And so yeah, it is IU's Achilles heel is got teams that move the ball really, really well and create open threes. And that's what Penn State does. And now, to be clear, against most teams this year, Penn State has not shot the ball very well. They shoot a lot of threes. They haven't made a ton of them. Against IU in both games this year, they've made a lot of 3-pointers. So maybe IU will get a little bit lucky in this game that maybe they won't make as many threes this time. But that is how Penn State is going to try to win this game, assuming it is Penn State that IU plays. I think you're right. I don't think Michigan's going to beat Penn State. But assuming that it is Penn State, that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to move the ball side to side, get IU in rotations, and shoot over the top of them. And that's what they did the first 2 times.
Michigan State right now is in the NCAA tournament somehow. Most of us don't know how that is.
Because they beat Baylor in December. Good job. The last time they played a good game was 3 months ago.
And so that says that the difference for Indiana was not beating Kansas.
Yeah, I think IU would be in the field right now if they had beaten Kansas. I think it would, or very, very close to it.
They would have to be in the field because the record is the same. But I say that, and then you look at the unbelievable disparity in the metrics for these two teams, which has been a topic of conversation for the last couple of days, mainly because I don't get it. I don't get that much of a disparity. I get a disparity, but we're talking gigantic. It's their numbers look like they have been playing a Big 12 schedule and have beaten Kansas and all these other teams along the way, and they haven't. Yeah. They've been very mediocre at best, but yet they were in the top 20 of some of these metrics, and still they're hanging in the 20s now, after losing to a team that is 80 spots lower than they are.
Yeah, the thing that you need to understand about the net, which is what the committee says they don't use it. It's not gospel to them, but it pretty clearly is a metric that they look at pretty closely. It takes into account margin of victory. It does. Like IU, they won all those games against mid-major teams early in the year by less points.
Morehead State by 1 point.
Yeah, they Florida Gulf Coast and Army and Wright State
or whatever.
Yeah,
and they were all single-digit wins.
Yep, and so that has dragged their metrics down the entire year. And meanwhile, Michigan State beat Baylor by 25, and that has buoyed their metrics the entire year. And
buoyed.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's the difference. And Michigan State is one thing, but Indiana is like 30 spots in the net below Ohio State. They beat Ohio State twice. Yes. They have the same Big Ten record, and they beat them twice head to head. It's baffling to me. Like I understand what they were trying to do with the net was take into account everything, and not who you played, but how you played. That's what they were trying to do. But boy, it doesn't do any weighting of games later in the season, which the NCAA tournament, with the NCAA committee, weights games later in the season a little bit stronger. So maybe IU will look a little bit better in those metrics. But yeah, it's been baffling to me the whole year because there are teams in the Big Ten that IU has beaten relatively easily that are pretty significantly ahead of them. Maryland is another one. Minnesota is another one. Those teams are both ahead of IU in the net. IU beat them twice in Maryland's case, once by 15 in Minnesota's case. So Yeah, I think there needs to be some tweaking there in the offseason, in my opinion.
Ohio State in KenPom is 49th, and that again, I'm like, wow, but they beat Purdue.
They beat Purdue. They're playing really well right now. Since they fired Holtman, they are playing very, very well right now.
And first of all, how about that? I mean, what are they? 5-1 or 4-1?
5-1. They immediately turned around. They not only beat Purdue, they beat Michigan State on the road, and they beat Nebraska. They're playing really well right. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a run in this Big Ten tournament here.
That's amazing in and of itself. And you really have to ask, what the hell? What the hell? Something changed once either he left or once daggone it, what's his name that has taken over the interim coach for Ohio State. Anyway, I can't think of his name, but since he's taken over,
Jake Dealer, brother of John Dealer.
Yeah. How does he not get this job? It's going to be awfully difficult for Ohio State to not give the job to this guy, because we're talking a 180 with this program.
Yeah.
I'll hold that answer. We'll come back and talk about it on the other side. We've got Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us. Make sure you stay tuned. We've got more coming up. Brought to you by Chop Shop Market and Table. Great place to go get every kind of meats, incredible steaks. Sit down and dine in. Get 10% off over at the bakery and everything else they have available. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home, Ohio State might get in. They're 49th in KenPom.
Yeah, they feel like they only need 1 or 2 wins to get in. Now remember, and this is something that people should remember, is that the committee takes tournament games less seriously than regular season games. They don't weight them as highly. They don't say that out loud, but it's very obviously true. Because they make the bracket on Thursday and then they don't like to change it. So it's the last couple of days are just for tweaking. As IU learned a couple of years ago, when it seemed like they beat Michigan and Illinois and they should have been very easily in the field, and they ended up being the last team in because the committee was like, all right, fine.
I said they know the first 4 ratings will be better.
Yes, exactly.
That was probably the kicker right there.
There you go. And they gave him a break, too, because they had him play that Wyoming team that did not in any way deserve to be in the tournament. They went 25-8 in the Mountain West and lost to some really bad teams. And IU played a C- game and beat them by 10.
But then they said, you know what? We're going to ship you out to Portland.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the other caveat.
You not to tell me I'm the one that drove from Dayton to the Indianapolis International Airport and got on a plane and flew straight to frickin' Portland.
Well, wouldn't it have been nice if IU had been able to do that? They had to sit on the tarmac for 4 hours or whatever it was. Remember that? God.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But at least they were on a private charter or whatever.
Yeah. God, what a weird situation, though. And it was so obvious that that it affected them too, because they played 12 good minutes against St. Mary's and then just totally ran out of gas. They were like, "Oh, that's it. We have nothing left."
Did you see the poster dunk for Trace Jackson Davis?
Yeah. Did you see that?
I saw your tweet first. Your tweet showed that to me.
Yeah. That was great. That was really good. Have you heard the call from the hometown announcer?
I only heard the one that was on that particular video.
So that was the national broadcast, the one that I tweeted. There was another one where it's the Warriors hometown announcers, and the announcer goes, he put the entire country of France in the basket.
Oh man, that's funny. How do you come up with that?
Here we go, guys.
APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to andymoorehonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Wednesday, Hump Day. Good day to get over the hump. Dylan Sinn with us from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Are you heading to Minneapolis?
I am not, actually. I'm staying in Fort Wayne. We have a lot of high school games this weekend, semi-state, and we also have a local team in the Division III Final Four. Trine University is from Northeast Indiana. They're up in Angola, and they're in the Division III Final Four this weekend. And the Division III Final Four is held in Fort Wayne. So the semifinals are on Thursday, and the final is on Saturday. So Trine is in the Final Four on Thursday. So I will be there for that.
Any names on Trine's roster that we might know?
Not particularly, I don't think. They just played Wisconsin-Platteville in the Elite Eight. Wisconsin-Platteville is led by Greg Gard's brother. He's the coach. And Chucky Hepburn's brother is their point guard. So that's mildly interesting there. But no, I think Trine is mostly, there's a lot of Indiana kids on Trine's team, a couple guys from Michigan. That's kind of their main recruiting area is those two states, but they've done really well. This is actually their first time in the NCAA tournament. They kind of got ripped off a couple of years ago. They didn't have a tournament in 2021, and they were one of the best teams in the country that year. But this year they made the tournament and they are in the Final Four. So 2 wins from a title.
Yep, I'm looking forward to going. Well, I'm not looking forward to the drive, but I'm looking forward to getting up to Newcastle.
There you go.
To watch the play up there. Can't wait. I haven't been there for a minute. I'm going to see Jeffersonville with Sean Wilkerson.
Okay.
So they're going to try to play their way to a state finals.
There we go.
That would be awesome to see. Former Indiana Hoosier, now coaching the Jeffersonville Red Devils, which I could have never believed I would be cheering for Jeffersonville. I'm a Floyd Central boy.
Of course.
It's still hard to do. I'm telling you. It's not easy. But Big Ten tournament play gets underway. There's a lot of all the other tournaments, the big-time tournaments will be playing as well. How much change, I wonder, will we see in the seedings, the upcoming NCAA seedings after these tournaments?
Probably pretty little, right? Like that's the thing. And that's what we talked about this during the break is that the NCAA tournament committee, they take these tournament games less seriously than regular season games. And they don't say that explicitly, but it's pretty obvious with just the way things have played out the last couple of years. They weight them less seriously. They weight late regular season games pretty strongly, which is why I think IU might have a little bit of a chance. But if you think going into the tournament, going into your conference tournament, that you need 1 win to get a bid, you probably need 2. If you think you need 2, you probably need 3. If you think you need 3, you probably need to win the thing. And that's where I think IU might be, is that they need to win the thing. I don't think that just getting to the final would change things. Because what happens is basically the committee makes the bracket like Thursday, Friday-ish. And then the only changes they make Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are really minor tweaks. And then if a surprise team wins a conference tournament, like if IU went through and won the whole thing, that would be a surprise. And they would have to change the bracket to accommodate that. But they changed things very little the last couple of days. That's why we learned a couple of years ago when IU was right on the bubble and they beat Michigan and they beat Illinois in the Big Ten tournament everyone thought it was pretty obvious they would get in, that they might even avoid the first 4, that they were basically the last team in the field, even with those 2 wins. And so, yeah, they changed things very little those last couple of days.
Yeah, and looking forward to the Big Ten tournament getting underway to watch that. I'm not going to go up either. Normally I do, but chose not to this year. For Indiana, I expect them to wind up in the NIT. Not a lot of talk about that right now, but that is the cold hard facts, I believe. Unless they were to win the Big Ten tournament, something they have not done in the now 30 years, I guess, that it's been in existence.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, so they're going to wind up in the NIT. Their record is going to be good enough. They could probably wind up being the top finishing team in the Big Ten that does not go to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Because they kind of already are in that position right now.
Yeah, they finished sixth. All the top five are all pretty well locked into the tournament.
Now, wouldn't it be again wild to see Indiana not make the tournament and teams that finish below them make the tournament? And I'm not saying this for an Indiana thing, but it's just weird, man. Now we're like, wait a minute, how does this work? So because that's a very, very possible reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Michigan State finished 2 spots below them in the seeding. Now they had the same record, and Indiana got in ahead of them on head-to-head. But yeah, like that's pretty likely going to happen. Michigan State is, I think, if they lose in their first game, they might be mildly nervous. I don't think so, though. I think they're pretty well locked in. And so yeah, they could get in the tournament at 18 and 14 and not even have to play in the first 4. They might be a 10 or 11 or a 10 seed or an 11 seed and not have to play in the first 4 at 18 and 14. And so I guess good for them, good for the conference. You always want to have more teams in than not, but boy, that's really, like, again, it's less me being incredulous that IU is not in and more me being incredulous that Michigan State is. I think the more.
Oh, we lost Dylan for a second there. I'm sure he'll be back. There we go. Yeah, it is what it is. But see, the thing is, nothing has changed, right? From the metric standpoint in the last year or two. I mean,
well,
make this.
They've devalued the RPI. When they put in the net, they devalued RPI. They devalued strength of schedule. They're using slightly different metrics now, I think is what they've told us. They never used any one metric as kind of like, this is the one we use it exclusively. But I think they devalued RPI and they value net much more highly now.
I think the net has got to go. It's not a good indicative. It's bad. It's too, you can manipulate it. It doesn't show the true value of a team, and the fact that they value games the same as a late November game, the same as one in March. I find that disingenuous because those teams are not the same. And obviously, if you're not better in March than you were in November, or vice versa, that's a weird scenario. You're supposed to be at your best right now, and what you can do right now should matter more.
Yeah. And the committee says that it takes into account like how you're playing late in the season, that it weights the games a little bit higher, but the net does not, pretty clearly. So I do think that that's something that needs to be resolved. I just think any metric that encourages the coaches to leave their starters on the court in order to run up the score late in games against bye opponents, that seems like a bad metric. I don't think that that's what we should be doing. Like, you should not get extra points for beating a team by 15 versus beating them by 32. That's not what should happen. I understand why that happens. I understand like from an efficiency standpoint, but that's just not how basketball is played. Like you take your starters out and you coast through late games. That's just how it works. Now I understand if we're going to make that the standard, maybe that changes. But yeah, I think that needs to be tweaked a little bit.
St. Mary's and Gonzaga, the battle of the Northwest, the battle of the quiet teams, I like to call them, because we never really know how good they are. But you mentioned St. Mary's earlier. With Indiana took them on in Portland 2 years ago, but the Gales snapped Gonzaga's regular season streak of dominance in the West Coast Conference Monday night. Or previously, and Monday night it did the same in the tournament, beating them 69-60. Gonzaga had won the last 4 West Coast Conference championships and 10 of the last 11. The only outlier was in 2019. That also went to St. Mary's. So I don't know that Gonzaga makes the tournament this year. Are they in?
They are right now. They are. I think they're kind of like the 8 or 9 line where it seems very likely that they get in, but they're not going to be a particularly high seed. Now it would be very it would be interesting. They might be able to scare a number 1 seed in the second round. They already beat Kentucky this year. They gave Purdue everything they wanted back in Maui in November. So I wouldn't be surprised if they play a 1 seed in the second round and give them a lot of what they want. But yeah, it seems like they're going to be an 8-9 kind of team this year.
Well, we'll certainly find out when the draw comes out. What's up next for you?
Yeah, I will be, like I said, I will be at Trine on Thursday. I guess that it'll be at the Coliseum in Fort Wayne covering Trine on Thursday. I will be covering the Big Ten tournament remotely, kind of providing coverage just for the Journal Gazette, whatever the AP does not give us, I will be adding on to it. Of course, I'll be writing about any developments for IU over the next couple of days as well, just whatever happens. And then I will be covering NAIA tournament as well. We have Grace, which is up here in Winona Lake, just about half an hour from Fort Wayne, is the number 1 overall seed in the NAIA men's tournament. So I will be covering that as well up in Grace on Friday and Saturday.
You've got Crown Point taking on number 1 Fishers, which we'll be talking about this with Kyle Neddenriep, and he joins us next as well. But plenty to look at. But also make sure you're giving Dylan a follow up in Fort Wayne, especially for his coverage of Indiana and Purdue, Purdue, the pressure on the Boilers this year to get it done. I mean, it has to be immense. I talk about it all the time, and those guys can act like it doesn't exist, and maybe they don't feel it because they don't bear the weight of all of those years on their shoulders, but they've been around for the last couple of years, and they've seen Purdue lose to the 14, 15, and 16 seeds, which there has to be embarrassment and a real drive to overcome that for the Boilers.
Absolutely. No, there is. And I've been really impressed by them this year that they were able to take the regular season seriously, quite frankly. I think it was impressive. They were able to get up every night and go play and go win just because they know that everything they do during the regular season doesn't really matter. It's all about the postseason for them this year. So they went out, they won the Big Ten by 3 games. I think they got significantly better. They're healthy at the end of the season in a way they weren't last year. And so they've done a really good job. They put themselves in position. Now you just got to go do the thing, right? Like there's a chance that if they do well in the tournament this week, they might well be the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, which would put them in Indianapolis for the first 2 games, which would be a huge boost for them. They could play the first 2 in Indianapolis, the second 2, if they make it, in Detroit. And so they'd have a huge home court advantage for all 4 of those games, would be my guess, going to the Final Four. So that would be huge for them, and they just probably need to win maybe 1 or 2 games this week in the Big Ten tournament to get that done.
Man, it's going to be a long day for me. I'm looking at going to Newcastle. The first game starts at 10 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
10 a.m. Can you imagine having to, first of all, to get your mind up to play at 10 a.m.? Wow, that's a little early. The second game is at noon, and I know they want to get them as much rest as possible, but wow, championship game then not until 8
Yes.
p.m.
Yeah, they give them several hours of rest in there. Boy.
Man. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Thank you, my friend. We appreciate you.
Absolutely, Jim. Thanks for having me on. Always glad to do it.
As always, we've got lots more coming up. Kyle Neddenriep joins us next. Brought to you by Remax Realty and Cheryl Sizemore. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Thank you, Dylan.
All right, gentlemen.
You, sir. Good
you
to
got
see
it,
you, brother.
Yep, sounds great, Jim. I probably will. Maybe I'll see you at Indiana spring practice coming up, huh?
Yeah,
there we go.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I will see you guys later. Have a good one.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right.
I think my daggone. My keyboard's not working.
Oh, no.
What the hell? What the hell? Jeez. That makes things a little difficult.
Maybe, I don't know if it's one of those that has a switch on it, but maybe turn it off and on. See if that
I
fixes
just
it.
did that. Jeez. What the hell?
All right, here's Kyle. Good morning, Kyle.
Morning.
How are you, brother?
Good.
All right, 30 seconds. These needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf Community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, Hump Day. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate you. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star joining us now, and busy time for Kyle as the Indiana boys basketball tournament is deep into the semi-state now with double games everywhere. And Kyle, I was just lamenting the fact that I plan to go to Newcastle this weekend, but the first game is at 10 a.m. and the championship game is not until 8 p.m. I'm like, holy crap, that's a long day, man.
It's a long day. So you go from where it used to be the regional was that way to now the semi-state's that way. So it kind of takes your brain some reconfiguring, at least mine anyway, to get that straight. But I always kind of like I don't know why I think of it this way, but we used to have that semi-state where it was, you could have a 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock game, and I would get done, and you have the time change, and I was able to walk out of that gym for semi-state, and it was still light out. And that always felt like a good feeling, like the weather's kind of nice. And and then last year they had the change, and it was a snowstorm at Newcastle, and I was leaving at midnight, so it was like it didn't feel quite the same as a normal semi-state. So maybe that's why my experience last year wasn't that outstanding, but yeah, this year it looks like a really good group at Newcastle. So I'm looking forward to that 4-team. I mean, I think it's one of those where it could kind of go any of the 4 directions, really. Lawrence North probably a slight favorite, but not like Ben Davis was last year. Certainly, I mean, they were definitely the pick. It would have been a surprise to see them lose. I don't know that that's really the case this year. But I would probably make Lawrence North a slight favorite.
Now, for people that don't realize that after the regional wins, they redrew everything. So you didn't know where you were going. Normally, say Jeffersonville, who is playing at Newcastle, playing Lawrence North at Newcastle in the second game, would normally have been playing at Seymour, but there are no 4A games there. Is that why that they didn't have a chance at playing there?
Yeah. So, back in the old days, they would have, I would assume would have put them there. I mean, that would have made, because they would have been playing Lawrence North in a 1 game, or whoever, would have been. I mean, honestly, it would have been different because they would have the regional. There would have been another round played last week. So, who knows how that would have shaken out. But, they don't always put 4A. I mean, 4A has been played at Washington, or, it's been played in some different places. Seymour, obviously, for the semi-state. So
this year, it's at Elkhart and Newcastle, both what I would call northern locations, although Newcastle is slightly northeast of Indianapolis, but still, I would consider a northern location. Surprising that they didn't split it a little bit better than that, but any reason for that?
Well, I mean, if you're going to use Newcastle, they used Newcastle last week for a northern site because Fishers and Kokomo played there, and the crowd was unreal. I mean, it was unreal. The crowd is amazing, but if you're going to use Newcastle, it doesn't really fit. I mean, unless you physically move Newcastle to the south or north, it doesn't fit north or south. Obviously, it's right on that. It's east. It's not north or south really. So, but you want to use that facility obviously because you can get so many people there, and it's obviously a fantastic facility. So, if you're going to use it, you're going to have complaints. And that's kind of the bottom line because it just doesn't. You're going to have 4 schools that don't all fit there. So this is sort of the nature of the way they do the regional and semi-state rounds. They have these sites sort of pre-picked, and then you kind of try to fit the teams to go there, and it doesn't work just by the nature of the way. It's not going to work ever. So, and I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying it's just you're never going to have equidistant teams. It just doesn't work that way. So Fishers is going all the way to Elkhart. And that's a long way, obviously, compared to, Mishawaka and the other teams that are playing up there. But I haven't heard Fishers complaining. I mean, this kind of part of, you kind of know going in, that's potentially what it's going to be. I mean, it's not going to be fair to everybody, So I don't know. I mean, there's always complaints about travel, and it's like, I don't know what you thought going into it it's going to be, unless you totally rechange how you structure where these games are hosted. Why are you surprised really that you're going farther away than, so it's just the way it's going to be, unless you do it completely different and have it all at one. You're going to have the whole tournament in Indianapolis or something. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's just if you're going to do it this way and try to use these facilities, it just doesn't fit geography wise for everybody.
And although 3 out of the 4 teams, though, are not really that far, they're all Indianapolis teams minus Jeffersonville, who will have a drive. But you've got Center Grove, who just south of Indy, and Ben Davis, who is an Indy team, Lawrence North, just on the west side of Indy, and then Jeffersonville, which will have the longest drive, like I said. So it's not really for 3 out of the 4. It would be the same, pretty much going to Seymour or Newcastle or whatever. But it's going to be exciting no matter what. Like you said, what a place to have. This to me has to be the best lineup of games. I know Fishers and Crown Point is probably going to be a great one. Fort Wayne against Mishawaka as well. The 4A, just, man, all of them. Those are some good games.
Yeah, and when I did look at that, I honestly thought they'd play at Southport just because you have the 3 Indianapolis area teams. So I'm assuming the reason is the size of the facility and maybe where the other schools landed too in the other classes. So that could be part of it. I'm not sure you're going to get Lawrence North and Ben Davis. I think would have had better crowds if you played at Southport than Newcastle. Just knowing their fan bases, they probably would have preferred to play at Southport, I'm sure, but because those are familiar, But so I'm curious how the crowd looks, and I think with a week in between, you're going to get some build up and fan buses and things like that. So I think that'll help too. But I was a little bit surprised, because you mentioned that. I mean, I did think it would be at Southport, but or possibly Seymour as the second. But I think the size of the facility at Newcastle probably played the biggest factor. But yeah, I think Fishers, going north after they beat Noblesville and Kokomo now. To me, the team up there that could give them trouble is Fort Wayne, who, we've kind of had our eye on them since last year. They returned a lot from last year's team that made the semi-state. And, they came down here a couple times and played in some good games down this direction. So they knew they would have a good team. Javon Lewis is their best player, but they have a good team overall, Dillard and Barnes and that group. So I think that's a team. They play a fast style, kind of like Fishers does. So that could play in their favor. But the only Keenan Garner did roll his ankle late in the Kokomo game with about 4 minutes left and didn't come back. So I'm assuming he's going to give it a go at least, but I would be curious how that plays itself out on Saturday, if he's able to go, and especially with 2 games you have to play. But they could probably, with their depth, get away with maybe not having him at 100% or not having him at all potentially. But that obviously puts them in a little bit of a bind. He's their top scorer and rebounder. So that could be something to watch on Saturday. But I still think they're a prohibitive favorite in that part of the tournament, in that semi-state.
You talking about Fishers or Fort Wayne?
Yeah, Fishers definitely. Just based on what they've done and who they have, but yeah, I think that Fort Wayne game could be interesting if those teams do end up meeting. And Crown Point, plays a really unique style. Lots of cutting, movement. Kind of a fun offensive style. Clint Swan's been there for a long time. Obviously knows what he's doing, a good coach. And then Mishawaka's kind of been the upset team up there in the north. So they've had a little bit of an easier path, but did beat South Bend Riley. And then, we're able to advance in the regional as well. So at this point in the year, you don't discount anybody if you're still playing.
It's going to be exciting. I look forward to it. I look forward to watching those games. I mean, man, there's 4 good teams there. And people should not forget that the championship games of these semi-states are in essence the Final Four. It's the first leg of the Final Four because there only one game after that.
Yeah, so it's and that's part of the. I have heard some people, boys and girls side, some complaints about, gosh, we're playing, we play this, and it's only one round anymore that you do this, no matter which round you put it, whether it's regional or semi-state. But they're kind of complaints like, man, we got to go play our toughest game of the year with basically no preparation, little preparation. You're preparing for that first game, not necessarily the second game. So I get that. I mean, that is an interesting argument, I think, but it's so it's almost like you're playing a holiday tournament or something and anymore. I mean, I know this used to be the way it was done pretty much in every round, but it's sort of a different world now where you only do this one time in the tournament, and that's your biggest game is to get to the state finals. And, you're resting briefly and then prepare you kind of cramming for the test as it is, and then playing a really good team. So, I get that argument. But, like I said, it's not the end of the world, I guess, but it just depends on how you want to do it. I think it'd be cool if you could do a Friday, Saturday weekend, but I don't know. I mean, people are always wanting to tinker with the tournament. Maybe this is just the best way to do it.
Yeah, and am I correct in thinking that there's a 2-week gap between the championship, or is that something else I'm thinking?
Yeah, this year because of the NCAA tournament, it's kind of like that was in 21 when they had the COVID tournament here. When they had everything here. And they had a 2-week break. So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like the Super Bowl. You play these games and then you wait a week. And then, so that'll be weird as well. It'll be kind of out of sight, out of mind for a week. And then come back and play the state finals. I think it's March 31st, actually. So it'd be a late one this year.
Yeah, that gives more credence to the fact of having to play that toughest game that you're going to have to play to get to the championship game with no prep, no time to prep. But then you get 2 weeks to play one game.
Yeah, sort of awkward that way. But I don't know what else you can do unless you moved it to, some other site, which I don't think you necessarily want to do that either. So
why not Hinkle? Why not Hinkle?
Well, I think the NIT I know is being hosted at Hinkle. I don't know when that is exactly, but that would be awesome. People get confused. I think they think it's an NCAA rule that you can't play at college sites. That's not true. I mean, you could. Other states play games at college arenas all the time. So it's I think I see that a lot where people are like, well, the NCAA doesn't allow that anymore. That's not the case. They don't allow you to have AAU tournaments at Assembly Hall like they used to, stuff like that. That got outlawed. But you can have high school tournaments at college sites. There's no rule against that. I'd love to see it. I was able to cover some of those games at Hinkle, and they were awesome. It became an availability and a money situation, and you wish that building was built for high school basketball as much as it was for anything. I know that was 100 years ago or whatever, but the point stands. It's a great place for high school basketball. I wish they could still use it for that reason.
What does Hinkle hold?
They made it smaller. I can't remember exactly what it is now. I want to say
is it 11,000?
Yeah, I was thinking 10 or 11. Where it used to be like 14 or whatever, but yeah, it's a little bit, and a lot of places are like that where, you can't fit in what they actually said they could hold when they were first built. Kind of like Newcastle. It's just not physically possible, So I know people get angry about that too. Well, they said it holds whatever, but well, it's just not reality anymore. But yeah, that would be a great thing, I think, if they could go back to holding high school games at Hinkle. But I'm not holding my breath on that either.
Well, Hinkle's going to be a busy place. If they have NIT responsibilities coming up, they will also be hosting the TBT coming up after everything's done. So it's going to be a busy venue.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I know all that plays into it, and, I know the financial part of it's a part of that too. And to be honest, we have great high school venues to hold these games, and the crowds I know at Hinkle had at that point kind of dissipated a little bit. Although I think the last one I watched there was just an awesome regional. It was, I think, Pike and North Central, and I think it was around 2012 or 11, somewhere in there. But it was a great day. That sun shining through the windows in a day game. It's just nothing quite like that. So, but yeah, I can understand. You can still have great events at other venues. We have enough of them, obviously, that you can still do that. And what I think this will be a great weekend of basketball. I'm looking forward to seeing, schools like Brownstown and Park Tudor play each other. I mean, 2A, you have some really good matchups. That 3A down at Seymour is going to be awesome too. I mean, you got Guerin and Danville and Scottsburg. I mean, they're just tearing it up this season. So that'll be a fun one as well. So looking forward to seeing how that one goes and just kind of following these games, even though I'll be at Newcastle following the games elsewhere also.
Well, I'll look forward to seeing you up there, my friend.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Jim.
Thank you very much. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. Make sure you are giving him a follow to keep up with all that will be happening in the IHSA tournament coming up this weekend. And also, don't forget, with the NCAA tournament coming up, Indiana Sports Beat's NCAA tournament challenge like last year. Just go to ESPN.com, log in or sign up. You go to the fantasy tab, create your entry if you don't already have one. Join the private group, Indiana Sports Beat Fans. That's Indiana Sports Beat Fans is the group. The password is simply Indiana. We had a bunch of you guys in there on that last year, so get on that and get ready to start making your picks. I'll be in there. I got to get mine going. And we appreciate everybody for doing that and having a good time. We'll the winners we'll get some merch sent out to them and have a good time with that. So looking forward to that. We've got lots more coming up. The Captain Rick Bozich joins us from WDRB.com. Brought to you by the Ugly Grouper on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Make sure you stop in and enjoy an incredible meal right by the ocean there in Anna Maria Island. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly. Yes, it is. But their tournament's a different deal. You can get beat in their tournament and still continue to play. It's odd in the early round. I never have understood that.
Not sure where Rick is. He usually tells me if he's not going to be here. So
yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me if he isn't because of the situation at Louisville today.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nothing's been made official yet, but I figured.
Oh, it hasn't?
No.
I thought he'd been let go.
To happen today, but he hasn't been fired yet, though. It's expected to be this afternoon at some point. I'll just send him a text and see if he'll respond.
Why would they wait?
Wait for what?
To fire him.
I mean, I don't think they're waiting. I mean, it's just I think the report is that they're waiting for him to get back from DC. They played in the ACC tournament yesterday, and that they'll be back today.
Oh, I got you. There he is.
Good morning, sir.
Sorry.
You might want to clean your camera off.
Yeah, I might want to.
It looks like Kenny Payne's job forecast.
Let me go get my hat. Let me get my hat.
Oh, don't worry. I got to wear a hat too. Don't worry, brother. Oh, my God. What a busy day. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day.
All right, 30 seconds.
Nobody beats the prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, hump day. And now the captain, WDRB.com's Rick Bozich joins us. Baseball season, Ricky, it's right around. I mean, it's not even right around the corner. It's here. Just hasn't started quite yet. But how are you looking going into the season, man, for your Sox?
Well, the Reds are pretty good, right?
Yeah, they're supposed to be all right again.
Yeah, the Sox beat them 14-1 last night, so I'm really pumped. I think we might be going to the World Series.
I did watch 8 Men Out last night. I fell asleep to that movie, by the way.
The White Sox have the worst record in spring training, so I'm not really getting my hopes up. They have the worst major leagues, so we'll see.
Yes, we saw. I just had Dylan Sinn on, and I lament that I didn't see his response on Twitter yesterday. There was a column or a piece in the Indy Star that was supposed to be a columnist type piece. I don't know who that guy is that wrote it. They have a columnist who is their.
Is that the Matt Shaw one?
Yeah.
Indiana needs an intervention. I don't know who the guy is either.
It's like, and Dylan says, this bothers me. I wished I would have brought this up. I didn't see it. But his response was, this bothers me from a newspaper perspective. You have one of the best reporters on the IU beat talking about Zach Osterman, and you decide to publish a glorified letter to the editor under an inflammatory headline and blast it out on social like it was written by someone who actually covers the team. And I can't say I disagree with that because I don't know who the hell this guy is. And yet the Indy Star has all the capabilities it wants to say something like that. You've got Zach Osterman that covers the team. You've got Greg Doyle who writes his columnist type pieces. So what is this like some kind of buffer zone that they think they're creating for themselves?
I don't know. I took it as I read it. I didn't think it was anything particularly terrific. It was nothing in there that I hadn't read anywhere else in terms of the criticisms of Mike Woodson. It sounded like to me he was a IU fan who was annoyed by what he saw happen on senior day with Mike Woodson's comments and decided that he wanted to write about it. That's what I thought it was. Doyle has been one of the primary critics of Mike Woodson for a while. And he's done he's done it in an effective way. And I thought this was pretty shoddy, actually. I don't know who this guy. I don't know if he was like a political reporter or is he a news columnist? I don't know who he is.
No idea. I think that reeks of just trying to sell papers, and that's funny.
We both know this, okay? I don't care whether it's local or regional or national. There's IU stories that are critical or have information will get hits. They will. There's a lot of Indiana alumni. There's a lot of Indiana fans everywhere. A lot of them are upset at the current moment. And if you throw something out there, people are going to click on it. So they got another guy. Oh, let's have them throw another voice out there. People will read this. And that's what they do. And if you can read a lot of these national writers, they'll throw crap out there about Indiana on Twitter all the time because they know people will take the bait. And my view is, if you really want to know what's going on at IU, stick to the local people who actually cover the team. Guys like you, Zach Osterman is reputable. I'll have to give recognition to my son's blog at Inside the Hall. I'll give Peegs credit. They've got a ton of information. Assembly Hall podcast, Crimson Cast podcast. Those are people that really know what's going on, and they're just not trying to, scream fire to get a bunch of people come run and see what there is. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's a little shocking to see that in the Star, because there have been they have been a pretty reputable publication, as far as you've got Zach, who reports, he's going to cover them. He's not a columnist. It's not his job. And I think sometimes people don't understand. There are differences in the jobs of various reporters. Zach is covering the team. It's not his job to be a columnist. Not that he won't give opinions or point things out from time to time. He does, and he will.
He'll give you analysis. He'll give you analysis on a regular basis. But you can usually tell what his opinion is when he writes stuff. I mean, this just seemed like we don't have as many sports writers, as many people at the newspapers we used to have. This guy's he's mad about this. He thought Woodson did something he shouldn't have done, so he's going to write about it. And I'm sure it got a lot of clicks. I mean, every news organization that I know of subscribes to a company called Chartbeat, or similar to Chartbeat, where they monitor when you post something, how it does on the web and how quickly it takes off and when it goes viral and who's linking to it. And they know, and especially within Gannett, I mean, it's all SEO driven. They know that anything IU related is going to get people to respond. And that's what they do. You can, right now, Purdue's in the driver's seat, and you can write all this Purdue stuff about how well they're doing and Zach Edey being player of the year. I would wager with a significant amount of money that if you write a Zach Edey story and put it up on the Star website, and you write a story about Mike Woodson did such and such, and he's a miserable guy, and this guy's thinking about doing this, that the IU story would get significantly more hits.
Yeah, there was something the other day that I saw that it showed the Twitter followers. Duke has the most far and away at like 2 million. Indiana is second, but it is an unbelievably far margin back at like 1.1 million. But there's still, so that puts them at still one of the top that there are in the country. There's a burner, Twitter burner format or something in which fans participate, and it was there were like 19,000 separate comments from IU fans, and the next closest was like, I don't know, 1,500 in regards to something. And that's just to show more about what you're talking about. The Indiana, the second highest alumni base in the country, and they've got a lot of people that are becoming more and more active on social media. Some I probably should not be. Some should have their rights taken away. That's never going to happen. But and that's part of why I can get vile. It's like road rage. I think people feel they feel safe in their car and they can do whatever they want, and because nothing is probably going to happen, they give you the finger going by or whatever. And I think it's because that stuff is not going to happen in real life. But sitting behind a keyboard, it gives people a lot more bravery.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing you might have been referring to is that Trilly Donovan, who's the guy who always writes about job changes and transfer portal and all that stuff. He has a Discord link on his newsletter where people can get in there and kind of comment on different things that are going on, and the number of people commenting about IU stuff is far more than any other of the stuff that's going on right now in college basketball. And I'm looking right now on Ken Palm's website, KenPalm.com's users' most popular teams. Number one actually is Purdue. Number 2, though, is IU. Number 3 is Carolina. Number 4 is Kentucky. Number 5 is Illinois. 6 Duke. 7 Kansas. 8 UConn. So, Indiana, I think I read Cignetti just said it in the story that he talked to Pete Thamel at ESPN as the second largest alumni base in the country. I don't know who's number 1, whether it's Penn State or Texas or somebody. But you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that Indiana has a loud and significant fan base. And there's a level of frustration there currently because the team's not going to the tournament this year and hasn't been a force in the tournament for a long time. And a number of them didn't like what Mike Woodson said on Sunday. And I don't blame him.
Yeah, he seemed to take an inopportune time again. He just seems removed from not reality, but out of touch with situations, out of touch with timelines. There's a time and a place to do certain things, and he doesn't seem to get that. That was a day about the players, and he took it to turn the attention back to himself to gather some just some support from obviously the people who stay for something like that are obviously big fans, and they're probably not going to be disagreeable to anything that goes on, and it wasn't. And so it was kind of an audience made just for that, and he took advantage of that. And it was I found that to be a little less than ingenuous.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about it like it's a Supreme Court justice appointment for life instead of a job that you have a 6-year contract for. It's not royalty. You're not the king of Indiana basketball. You're the coach, and other coaches, including his mentor, Bob Knight, was removed from the job. So nobody's impenetrable in that job. The second part of it that you were really right about was that it was about the seniors. And the third thing was there was a much better way to handle it. And all he had to say was this. I know this has been a tough year for everybody. It's been a tough year for us and the players. We get that. And we got a great opportunity to go to Minneapolis next week. And we're still committed to making the NCAA tournament and doing something Indiana's never won, win the Big Ten tournament. And then we're going to get out and we're going to bust our ass in recruiting, and we'll come back better than ever next year. And that's it. That's all you have to say. You don't have to say anything else, because I think that would be a better way of showing leadership. But that's not been the thing that I really keep struggling about, and we've talked about this before, is I don't see how he got by with his attitude of I don't want to be questioned about anything after serving as the head coach at the New York Knicks in New York City, because I can't believe the tabloid guys and put up with that stuff. I mean, for people to ask him, like as they did last week, are you concerned about recruiting since you don't have any recruits? That's not an outrageous question. That's a question any legitimate Indiana basketball fan has, and he should have been able to answer that without being condescending and dismissive.
And not only that, to act as if those fans do not deserve an answer, that the media does not deserve an answer, is also a very, very false place to put himself, because I've said this, he's one of the highest paid state employees. So actually, yeah, you do need to talk about your job, especially when it's not being done well.
Of course you do.
Secondly, big part of your contract or what he makes comes from media, comes from radio shows, of which he skipped probably 4 times this year, I think. So that all is part of your salary. And then you add in the people that are giving to NIL. You owe an explanation to these people.
Of course you do. And let me ask you a question. After the season ends, he's not going to talk again until late May, when he's going to come down here and go to Starlight at Huber's. And there's going to be 1,000 people there. Maybe there won't be as many this year because they're disappointed. But what are they going to want to know? They're going to want to know, what recruits do you have and why is next season going to be better? And is he going to tell them, I don't talk about recruiting, I don't talk about my my job security? I don't think so. So, I mean, people that are asking these questions are only asking the questions that the fans want to know the answers to. I mean, it's preposterous to think that he shouldn't have to talk about, what's the plan now once Liam Neely, he can talk about Liam McNeely. He was a committed recruit. What's the plan now? How are you going to build your roster for next season now that you have no recruits?
Yeah. And when he doesn't have answers, that's when he seems to get indignant. And I think a lot of the time he doesn't have the answer. And that's the problem. What is the plan? Right now, the plan just seems to be hitting the transfer portal, which, yes, I'm not saying that Khalil Ware wasn't successful. Sure, okay, he was, but look how many spots they needed to fill. They did not fill them. They did not get the pieces that they needed to get. They ended up leaving a scholarship open because they couldn't fill them. So just because you get a good player does not wipe out not getting two more that you need, to me.
Yeah, and I think we see with the teams that are good, I mean, you can have one or two transfer portal guys, but generally speaking, the teams that are counting on 4 or 5 or 6 portal guys, that's not a recipe to be a really good team. Really good team.
Chris asked, can we ask Rick how Kenny Payne handled the media during his disappointing season? Probably asked a lot of the same similar questions, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, he could have done better. I mean, yesterday he made some statements about how he was disappointed that people lost faith in him so quickly and quit coming to games. I think at times his messaging after games was too repetitive in terms of, we have to play with more fire. We have to be the aggressor instead of saying, I got to find a
get
way
over the hump.
Similar to that, I got to find a way to make these guys play better defense is what he needed to talk about. And, he did at times, but not enough. He lost the media battle too. The radio shows, and I don't listen to them, and the Twitter people at Louisville, after he lost early in the first year, turned against him, and they stayed on him pretty relentlessly. And so, once that becomes the case, you got to win games to get it back. But the difference, I think, between Kenny Payne and Mike Woodson was that Kenny Payne was a novice head coach, and Mike Woodson had coached 4 full seasons in the NBA. I mean, he's been around the block in terms of media dealings. So hopefully Kenny learns a lesson from this, and if he gets another opportunity, he does better next time.
Eric thinks that because he runs the program the way he wants to run it, he doesn't have to answer to anybody. This is the thing that bothers me with local media. They think he is supposed to answer to them. Well, he is, and he doesn't. If this was Robert Knight, people would not have as much a problem. We all know.
Well, here's what I'll say, though. When Knight was the coach, it was a different world. There weren't all these different media outlets. There wasn't Twitter. There wasn't social media. There wasn't all this other stuff. And secondly, Bob Knight went to the Final Four in his second year. He went undefeated until Scott May broke his arm his 4th year and won a Big Ten title. He won a national championship with the last undefeated team in his 5th year. He put a lot of big deposits in the bank really early on and showed he was going to be a Hall of Fame coach. Mike Woodson hasn't done any of that stuff. I mean, he went to the tournament the first year and had a nice season, barely made the tournament by rallying in the Big Ten tournament and got blown out by St. Mary's. He had a good year last year. They finished second in the Big Ten, but he got blown out by Miami in the NCAA tournament. And this year, I think it's fair to say they've underachieved. This is a team that, in my opinion, should at least be a bubble team for the NCAA tournament, but they're not, because they didn't play up to their potential from the very first game of the year. And I think Mike Woodson has a lack of understanding of how important the analytics work in college basketball, and that when you're playing these teams like Florida Gulf Coast and Army, you need to beat them by 10 or 15 points. You can't, and then you can't get blown out the way they get blown out in a lot of games, because I'm not the first one to mention it. Michigan State has a lower seed than IU in the Big Ten tournament. They both have the same record. Michigan State safely in the field and Indiana isn't. And that's the reason, because Michigan State has better analytics because they have more impressive wins. They beat some of the chump teams by more points, and they didn't have some of the bad losses that IU had, right? I mean,
that is dead on. That's Indiana not beating Kansas haunts them. I remember we said it then and say it now, that haunts them because Michigan State's big win was over Baylor early on, and that's the major difference between them. And you listed the others. We've got lots more coming.
The morning after the night of the Kansas game, that's what I wrote, saying this loss might cost Indiana the NCAA tournament. People got mad at me. Like, how can you say that? Real easy. They don't have any quality wins in the non-conference. And it's not like in the NBA where they just look at the standings and say the top 10 teams go to the playoffs. They don't do it that way. They look because in the NBA, the schedules are similar. It's different in college basketball. And they say, what have you done? Let's go to break.
Well, Rick Bozich taking us to break. We've got more coming up here, brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, right off of I-65 and Veterans Parkway. Great place to catch a game with over 50 televisions, pizza, burgers, beer. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Rick taking us to break, baby. Boom. Love it. Are you coming up? Oh, no, there is no more to come up for.
NIT.
The NIT, that's right. They will
might
more
come
than
to a
likely
women's
host.
game if they get to host.
Boy, are they going to hold on? That's going to be, they're going to be close.
Yeah, you wonder if they will be punished, because sometimes the committee counts you down if they feel like some of your better players are injured.
Well, at least the Mackenzie Holmes playing showed that she's probably ready to play. Coming in there in that fourth quarter.
He didn't look very good in that bulky knee brace, though. And
no, because she comes in and she came in, they're down 2, and next thing I know, they're down 15. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, she didn't look right.
That's bad luck for her again.
Yes, it is. Hard to believe her luck.
I went to, where did I go? Last week, watching high school ball, Jeffersonville and Evansville Harrison, which was fun. It was actually fun. That was a great game. I'm planning to go to
Harrison and Jeff.
Does
Jeff have any guys who are college possibilities? They're younger.
Yeah,
guys.
there's a kid. There's a kid on there that's probably gonna eat like a Valpo type kid. Trey Washington, I think. I can't remember his last name. 6'8" kid, but they're fun to watch. A lot of ball movement.
Who does he have to play this week?
It's Lawrence North.
Lawrence North, yeah. It's probably
they get that little guard that was voted City Player of the Year, Xavier Robinson.
Yeah. Yes, they do. And that's going to be a tough one. That environment will be mad craziness. Newcastle Fieldhouse with let's see, who are the other 4 teams or the other 2 teams?
Crown Point and Fishers, I think.
Yeah, Fishers. Oh. No, Fishers, that's up at Elkhart.
Maybe I read the wrong one for the second.
Crown Point has to come all the way down and play in the same.
I could be wrong about
Crown Point is playing at Elkhart.
Yeah.
I can't think of who the other 2 are.
All right, here we go. It's at Newcastle, it's Center Grove and Ben Davis.
There you go.
Playing the first game at 10 a.m.
All right, here we go, guys.
Chop Shop, Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Wednesday Hump Day, brought to you by our good friends down at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. For those of you who live down in southern Indiana, go see our good friend Dr. J to keep that championship smile. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com is with us right now, and he's got all kinds of things to cover as Indiana enters play in the Big Ten tournament. Louisville on the precipice of potentially firing Kenny Payne, which that is highly when's that expected to even happen, Rick? I mean, it's like
today.
Everybody knows it's going to happen, but
I think there's going to be a press conference this afternoon. I mean, we've already learned that he won't be back. He's not going to be back. The official press conference probably won't be till this afternoon. Louisville's athletic director is up in Indianapolis. He's a member of the tournament selection committee for the women's tournament. So Louisville left Washington, D.C. sometime in the last hour, flying back from their loss in the ACC tournament. They'll be back in town here in the next hour, and I imagine not long after they get back, the emails will be coming out, and I would think there'll be a press conference at some point this afternoon.
The big question, of course, who are the legitimate candidates, do you think, to fill that job? It's a good job. Louisville's a good job. Don't kid yourself. You play in the ACC. They've got tradition. They've got history. They've got 3 national championships. So that's a place that somebody will go to.
Yeah. The names are the same names that you hear in a lot of other jobs. I mean, Scott Drew is a name that you hear probably the most. I don't have any particular insight to Scott Drew other than 1 or 2 people that know him. And my sense is that he really likes it at Baylor. He's been there over 20 years. He built the program from the ashes.
He's been there that long? Holy cow.
Yeah. They built a new arena. I mean, they'll build a statue of him someday. And, people talk about they can get him more money here. Yeah, I guess they probably can. But talk about he's, originally at Valpo, but Valpo is the other end of the state from Louisville. That's not nearby. And his parents don't live in Valpo anymore. They live in Phoenix, where his brother is the coach at Grand Canyon. So I don't think it's like a homecoming for Scott Drew to come here. That's a little bit of a stretch. It'd just be a matter of whether he would want to take on a challenge of rebuilding another program and becoming a coach who won a national title at 2 different places. I don't know. I don't know Scott Drew well enough to go. He's certainly a terrific coach. The other names that you hear are Dusty May. I don't know. I've heard Dusty May's name with Ohio State more prominently than Louisville. Hear the name of Jamie Dixon. His name's popped up at TCU recently. Jerome Tang of Kansas State. Mick Cronin, I think, would like to come to Louisville, but his buyout is $20 million at this point.
Yep. I posted that. Well, I looked at his buyout a while back about this stuff, and I'm like, nope, no chance. There are certain coaches that have no shot, and Mick Cronin's one of those. And not saying that Nate Oates is, but Nate Oates is another one who is landlocked by a buyout.
What's his, like 10 million?
Yeah, it's crazy.
8 or 10.
It's way up there.
Yeah, I mean,
Mick Cronin's buyout is really bad.
It is.
If you look at it, you're like, wow, how did he get a buyout that is so stinking high? He screwed himself. Unless he was wanting to lock himself in there, he's definitely locked in at UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, some people have floated this idea that there's a loophole or something that since UCLA will no longer be in the Pac-12, they'll be in the Big Ten, that gives him an out. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say whether that is or is not true. Who knows? We'll find out. I mean, Mick hasn't been happy this year. If you followed UCLA, they have a losing record. He's ripped his players publicly on multiple occasions. He's also made some comments about how UCLA's NIL effort isn't where it needs to be. And his dad and his brother still live in Cincinnati. If you told me today there was no obstacle with the buyout, I'd say that Mick Cronin would be the front runner.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 1,000% because he knows people in Louisville. He having spent his time at Cincinnati. He is, and like I said, Louisville's a good a good job. It's in the ACC. You're on TV. The money is going to be good, and more importantly, he probably would have a much better NIL program at Louisville than at UCLA. UCLA is just not. They're just a thing out in Los Angeles.
They're just the thing, and he's already through the honeymoon period. He's been there 5 or 6 years. He went to a Final Four in the year where there were no fans. Remember, in the arena they played. I don't remember where they played Gonzaga or who it was. I think they played Gonzaga and lost to Gonzaga in the Final Four. And since then, Juzang and Amy Yaquez and the little guard, I forget his name, they're all gone. He's rebuilding this year. UCLA fans are like any other fans. They're hard on how many coaches have they run through there? I mean, we can go through the Ben Howland, Steve Alford, Steve Lavin, Gary Cunningham, Walt Hazard, Gene Bartow. I'm forgetting a few. They go through coaches there like they change underwear. So, I mean, he knows that after having a losing season like this next year he's going to be on the hot seat. So I don't know. I'd love to see Mick Cronin here. I think he'd be a good coach and he's a good dude. But Billy Donovan's name's been thrown out recently. I don't know.
Is there not a coaching opening that comes up and his name doesn't pop up?
Right. It's kind of faded a little bit recently because he's been so out of the news because the Bulls have been so bad for a while. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, Pat Forty has suggested the guy at Indiana State, Josh Schertz. I don't know if Louisville's ready to. I think people who are really into college basketball know who Josh Schertz is and what he's done. I'm not sure. That'd be a little bit tougher sell at Louisville, I think. Do you know him? I mean, does he have the personality?
I don't, but
done a good job.
I've heard. I was talking to AJ Moye this weekend. He was at the high school tournament, and he talked very highly of Josh and the job he's done there. So I think that's the trick is these programs, whether it's Indiana or Louisville, you cannot just go for these names. But at the same time, if you don't, you better hit a home run. If like when Fred Glass decided he was going to be a one-man search committee and hire Archie Miller, that he did not do the research he needed to do. The background check that he should have done and talk to people who knew him. I think that would have made a hell of a difference. He just looked at one thing apparently, and that was not the right thing to look at. Now,
you're aware that Archie checked out for the season last night?
No.
Yeah. Archie exited the Atlantic 10 tournament in a first-round loss to St. Louis. So he ended his season at 12-20. So he's gone 12-20 and 9-22 in his first 2 years at Rhode Island.
Ooh, they got better this year. Little Rhodey is little Rhodey.
Finished, next to last in the league last year, and this year he moved it up to fourth from last.
But sometimes you just keep going. You get to a place and you just keep going. Was that the term, John? You just keep going.
I mean, a lot of people thought that was a good hire in Indiana because he had success at Dayton and went to that one Elite Eight. That's why he went to the tournament there. I don't know. Here's the challenge. In today's college basketball, you can win at a lot more places than you used to be able to win at because of NIL. If you're at a place where you've got, the right backing and you have a good coach who knows what he's doing, and you have the support of the administration, you can win there. And you don't have to go to one of these other jobs that's a bigger pressure cooker to win. You can do it elsewhere. We see evidence of that across the board, don't we?
Yep, without question. What's up next for you, sir?
Oh, it'll be all Kenny Payne today, and then tomorrow, Indiana play tomorrow. I'm sure I'll watch Indiana play tomorrow night against either Penn State or Michigan, correct?
Yes,
To see
sir.
if
That
they
game
can,
is at 5:30 today, I believe. Roughly 5:30 today, I think.
See if they can avoid the record-breaking moment of getting swept in 3 games in basketball by Penn State. And then Kentucky starts play in the SEC tournament on Friday in Nashville, and then we'll play that out. And Sunday, I think we only have 3 teams that'll be in the tournament. It'll be Kentucky's men, Louisville's women, and Indiana's women. So we'll see.
Indiana State, do you think they have a shot of getting in?
Yeah, they have a shot. I haven't checked Lenardi recently. A lot of people, I think a number of brackets have them in at this point. I don't think their non-conference schedule merits them being put in, but they become sort of a media darling where people are saying they'd rather see a team like Indiana State make the tournament than the 8th best team from the Big 12.
Absolutely. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you're giving him a follow. Rick, thank you, sir. Appreciate you, brother, as always.
All right. Bye.
Big thanks to Dylan Sinn as well from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette and Cal Neddenriep from the Indy Star. Lots to that we've talked about today and covered. Go back and listen to it on the Facebook channel if you or the YouTube channel rather if you missed that. And if you have not, make sure you subscribe. Please do that. We've got more coming up tomorrow. We'll cover what happens tonight in the Big Ten tournament, and we'll keep eyes on who gets that Louisville job and who comes up for that. Big thanks to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines, and most importantly, each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. We're back tomorrow to do it all again. Look forward to talking to you guys. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.